So now what we're going to do is look at the abdominal pelvic region, okay? And we're going to focus on dividing that into different regions, all right? Now you could do a basic quadrants where you mark it at the belly button, you go horizontally and you go vertically, and you get 4 quadrants. Okay, you can totally do that, that works. We're going to take a look at the regions of the abdominal pelvic area that are going to separate it into 9 different regions, okay? And we're going to use the Anatomage Table to help us do that so we can kind of find our landmarks on people because, quite honestly, you'd have a guy like this come in as your patient, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out where these quadrants would be. So I'm going to take the pen, and I'm going to use my belly button, basically, that umbilical region, as one of my landmarks. So I'm going to draw, you're going to draw like a tic-tac-toe. And you can see this on your paper that you guys have. In the diagram, you can see the tic-tac-toe, and that's what I'm going to be drawing. So I'm going to start a little bit below the belly button, okay, and I'm going to draw my first horizontal line, okay. The next horizontal line is going to be a little bit above that. It's kind of hard to tell on the skin where to go, but it's okay if we mix this up, we can fix it, okay. So we're going to go probably about like right here and draw the next one, okay. And then we need to do the vertical lines. So what we're going to do now is your midline or sternum is down the middle. We're not going to go directly in the middle. We're not going to go all the way over to the nipples. We're going to go about halfway in between. And we're going to start down here and work our way up. And same thing over here. And work our way up. And so what that does is that divides the abdominal pelvic region into 9 distinct regions. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take and remove the skeletal, not the skeletal, the skin. I'm going to take that off, okay, so that we have muscles left, okay? So now we can see the muscular system there, all right? And if we turn on the annotations for the abdomen and pelvis, now we can see what muscles are in that region, okay? In the middle, you have your rectus abdominis, and so my lines are a little bit off because it's kind of hard to tell with the skin to get it perfect. So I'm going to redraw those lines and try to get it a little bit better. So we're going to go right back across like this. Go right back across like we did before. That one was right. Go a little bit up from here. And this time, you see this white edge right here? That's part of your fascia that's along in the muscle area. We're going to draw our other line very near that, right there. And this one right there. Okay? So I was close, a little bit off. All right? So now let's take a look at some of the muscles that we have in the area.
Turn these lights off. Can you turn these off? Would that be really disruptive? Try it.
As far as I can get it.
Well, that's perfect, sorry.
All right. So if we look at the muscles in these different quadrants, first of all, what are these quadrants? Okay? So if we take a look at these different regions here, okay? So let me actually come up here and take a look up here. So here we have, do we know if this is right or left? What have we decided?
Right.
How do you know it's right? Right. It's the patient's right, not your right. So the upper quadrant here is on the right side. So this is the right hypochondriac region. Okay, right hypochondriac region. So let's kind of draw a little tic-tac-toe on the board. Go with that. So right hypochondriac region. So what do you think the one over here is going to be on the other side? Left hypochondriac. You got it. All right. Remember the belly button? That's where your umbilical cord is. So that's going to be your umbilical region. All right. Let's go down here. Are we on the right or left side right now?
Right.
Right. So this is the right lumbar region. okay? Lumbar is said for the vertebrae in that area. So right lumbar. What do you think the other side's going to be? Left lumbar, yes. All right. Down here, are we on the right or left again?
Right.
Right, so this is the right iliac. And that's named for part of the hip, part of the pelvis, okay? It can also be referred to as the inguinal. So what do you think the other side is going to be? The left version of that, absolutely. So the left iliac or inguinal. Okay, so that leaves two more. Okay, the one that's closest to here, this one right here, is called the epigastric region. Epigastric. And what we're going to find is the word gastro kind of tends to refer to the stomach area. Okay? And then this one is going to be the hypogastric. Hypo means below. So it's below the gastric area. It's also got another name though. You may want to take a guess.
Pubic.
Pubic region. Okay, so that's what these regions are called. So let's look, now that we know the names of the regions, let's go back and look at our muscles here and see if we can identify what muscles are in what regions. Okay? I know we haven't had muscles yet, but let's take a look. All right? So if I want to identify this big muscle here in the middle and isolate it, there it is. So we have, there it is. So here I have the right external oblique, okay? And that external oblique is over here on the side, right? So if we go back and see our drawing, oh, I lost my drawing. That's okay, we can draw it again. I'm not sure where my drawing went, but we'll just draw it again. Okay, so here we have, on the side here, here's that external oblique, okay? We have one on the right and we also have one on the left, okay? So, what were these three regions called? What was this one? Right or left? Right hypochondriac, right lumbar, right iliac, right. That's going to all contain that one muscle, the external obliques. Now the internal obliques are underneath that, so they would also be there as well, okay? So, so that's those, okay? Let's see if we can find, so here, so I took away the external oblique, and you see this right here underneath, so these little pieces here? That's part of the rectus abdominis. Anybody ever heard of six-pack abs? Okay, that's the ones you're talking about right here, okay? So if we think about where those are, they're kind of basically, if you compare this to the other side, you can kind of see underneath the tissue sheath, you can see the muscle right underneath that. So if we go back to our drawing, okay, and put our quadrants back up, okay, where's the rectus abdominis in here? What did we say this region was?
Epigastric.
Epigastric.
Umbilical.
Hypogastric. And hypogastric, right. So your rectus abdominis encompasses all three of those regions, okay? So notice in the abdominal pelvic region, a lot of these muscles you may have heard of before because your rectus abdominis, your external obliques, your internal obliques are all involved in exercise, right, when you're doing sit-ups and things like that. The upper boundary of the muscles is actually the diaphragm. And I'm not sure if I can show you that on this one, so we can get to it. All right, that's fine. So the diaphragm is actually going to run the boundary of the surface. Okay, and the diaphragm is a muscle that's important in breathing. We'll get to that later. But what happens with the diaphragm, it's going to basically separate the abdominal pelvic cavity from the thoracic cavity. So it's going to run right there at the superior portion of the abdominal cavity. Okay, I'd have to move a lot of muscles to show you that, which I can do later. So that diaphragm is going to be the upper boundary. So it's going to basically be on the top where the epigastric, hypochondriac regions are, both left and right. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's take the muscles away now. All right. Okay, now the muscles are gone. Okay? So let's put our quadrants back on there. Okay? It's a little harder this time because I don't have my landmark anymore. Okay? Because my belly button's gone. But you'll notice that there are a lot of organs in here. And let's actually turn off this and turn on gastrointestinal. Okay, so I have a lot of organs in here now, like the liver, which is here. And I have the spleen, which is up here. And I have large intestines and small intestines in there as well. Okay, so let's put our drawing back on here of our grid. Okay, so notice our abdominal pelvic cavity, it has some bones in it too, yes? So remember let's start first at the pubic region, which was also called the hypogastric region. Guess what this bone of the pelvis is called? Pubis. The pubis, right. On this side, what do we call this region?
Iliac.
The right iliac, right? Guess what part of the hip this is?
Iliac.
The ilium. It's the ilium. Same thing on the other side, that's the ilium as well. Okay? So the bones of the pelvis are in this particular quadrant as well. So they're in the lower portions of the quadrant, the inferior ones. In the hypogastric, you have the pubic bone, and in the iliac, you have, of course, the ilium for the pelvis. Okay? Now, take a look at the top. Notice we have some ribs in there as well. Okay? If you look at the ribs, you have some of the ribs that are connected through cartilage. So this kind of lighter coloration that you see here, this is the costal cartilage connecting the ribs to the sternum. Okay? Most of the cartilage is in this region here, which is called what? Epigastric. Right. You have some ribs though, and these are called false ribs because they're not directly connected to the sternum. Your false ribs, 7 through 12, are in this region here. What was this one called? Hypochondriac, right? The right and the left, because you have two sets of ribs. Okay? So your ribs would be found in the right and left hypochondriac regions. The costal cartilage, this connected part, is in, what was this region again? Epigastric. Right. Okay? Now let's take a look at, let's get rid of the skeleton. So we'll take that one and turn that off. All right, and now we've got some organs, some internal organs, okay? So looking at those same quadrants, okay? This big, huge, reddish structure here is the liver, okay? You see the liver here, right? What regions are the liver in? What's this one? Right hypochondriac and epigastric, okay? Now, on the other side, we're going to have our stomach. Now, the stomach's not labeled on there because it's behind, so we can pull that away. We can pull the liver away. Let's get rid of the liver. Okay, there goes the liver. Bye-bye, liver. And here we have, so we have the pancreas right here, and this guy right here is the stomach. Okay, so if we put our grid lines back on there, okay, where's the stomach falling? Yeah, a lot of it's in the epigastric. A little bit's going to be over here. I didn't draw my grid lines perfectly, but you'll have most of the stomach in the epigastric region, you'll have just a teeny little bit in the left hypochondriac as well, okay? So that's the stomach. Pancreas, where do we find the pancreas? So let's get rid of the stomach. Yeah, the epigastrics. Let's get rid of the stomach. Okay. And draw my grid lines again. Okay. And so the pancreas is here also in the epigastric region. What are you noticing about that epigastric region? There's a lot in there, isn't there? Yeah. A lot of important stuff, right? So if you go to the ER and you're complaining of a stomach ache, what quadrant are you probably dealing with? Your epigastric, yeah. I've gone in and the nurse says epigastric pain. Anybody ever heard of that? Epigastric pain is referring to some pain in this area. Imagine going into the ER and saying, I'm having a stomach ache. Okay, well, where on the abdomen does it hurt? You have to identify that, and the nurse says which region that belongs to. So you can see how each region has different components to it, and those components are really important in figuring out what's wrong, right? Because if I have epigastric pain, I'm not going to be complaining about my bladder, right? So we have to, it helps us isolate what's wrong. Okay, so these regions are really important in that regard. Okay, you also have the intestines. So you'll notice, where do the intestines kind of generally fall? More in the umbilical and in the pubic region, and of course in the others on the lumbar regions, right? You have a lot of them on the right and left lumbar as well. So that's where your large and small intestines pretty much encompass. You do have some, you'll notice some of them come out in here into the lower, the right and left iliac regions. You also have an appendix. Anybody ever heard of the appendix? Yep. The appendix is right here. My line's a little off. And it's going to be in the, what was this region again? Right iliac. Yes. Okay. All right, so let's see. What other organs do we need? We haven't talked about. Oh, the bladder. Hello. Here's the rectum. So the bladder is going to be back behind the, let's get rid of the intestines. Okay. That'll help us if we get rid of the intestines. There we go. And we can also turn on the urinary system for our labels. All right. So here's our urinary bladder. Okay. So urinary bladder, what region do you think this is? Let's draw our regions back on here. In epigastric? Hypogastric, right, hypogastric. There's where your bladder is right there, hypogastric. Okay? What about your kidneys? See these guys right here, these little bean-shaped guys on either side? Mm-hmm. Those are your kidneys. Okay? I didn't draw my lines. Let's redo my lines a little bit better. So my kidneys actually need to be, tell you what, let's do the spleen first. Oops. Do the spleen first, then we can get rid of the spleen. So here's the spleen, right here. Okay. So, okay. So let's go back. Reset. All right. Come on. Reset. I have to reset real quick, guys. Hang on. All right. Here we go. Where's your spleen? Okay? Spleen's this guy right here. What region is this? Left hypochondriac. Yeah. Okay. Now we got the spleen under. so now let's get rid of some things. Let's get rid of the liver again. Let's get rid of the spleen now. Get rid of the large intestine. Get rid of the small intestine as well. Okay. Get rid of the stomach. There we go. All right. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to flip it over and look at the posterior side. And now we can really see our two kidneys here. So here's the two kidneys. Okay, they're on the back, they're on the posterior side. So if we draw our quadrants again. Okay. Where do most of your kidneys lie? Hypochondriac, but we also have them that go, part of it, I didn't draw my lines perfectly, but because it's a little tilted. But part of the kidney also falls into the lumbar region as well. Okay, so you'll have kidney in the right hypochondriac, right lumbar, left hypochondriac, left lumbar as well. Okay? Does that make sense? So that's where the kidneys would be. All right, let's see. I think that's pretty much all the ones that I wanted to cover. Back to the bones, I forgot to mention. Let's go back and put the bones back on here.
Sorry.
So we put the bones back on here, and we're looking at the posterior side now. There's your, so we're a little too high. I need to shift that. So I'm going to redraw my lines. So that's a better line. So when you start taking things away, it's harder to draw the lines. So notice my vertebral column is running down the middle. So the vertebrae are in the epigastric region and in the, what was this one again? Umbilical. We have our sacrum and coccyx, which are the tailbone, which are going to be in what region here?
Hypogastric.
Hypogastric, right. Okay? So what we're going to do now, Frank, we're done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take that paper that I gave you guys, and you're going to take and identify what regions are where. Okay, so for example, number 1, where would the umbilical cord be? Yeah, umbilical region. Yeah, that was an easy one. You're welcome. That was easy. So you're going to work on those, work on them together, and while you're doing that, we're going to kind of shut this down. Okay? All right, keep working. I'll turn the lights back on.